Hey, what's up? Welcome to DIY Guy. Today we're going to be working on a 2014 Honda Civic EXL, and we're going to be changing the serpentine belt and the water pump. So this could actually be two separate projects, but I'm doing it all at the same time on this car. It's got about 77,000 miles, so it's due for both of these services. I was quoted about $850 plus the taxes and other charges. So that's going to be about $900 at the Honda dealership. For the belt and the water pump, I spent about $100. So probably save around $800 based on dealership costs. You can probably get that done cheaper elsewhere, but it should be pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk you through this. The first thing we're going to do is get the car jacked up and take off this passenger side front tire to be able to access the belt a little bit easier. So we'll walk you through the steps on this. Okay, so here's my new water pump and gasket to go with the water pump. You need both of those. The gasket's going to fit right in there, and here's the new belt I've got here. And we need some somewhat simple tools. The first thing we're going to be doing is disconnecting the battery. Now, before we do that here, you're going to need a 10mm wrench to disconnect your battery. But before you do that, on these cars, depending on the radio that you have, you want to get the radio code because it's going to lock your radio, and you need that code to reset it. So if you don't have it, look in the owner's manual and look through your literature. If you don't have it there, I'll show you the one other place you can look to find that. Okay, so looking in your car, open up your glove compartment. If you don't have that code, look on the side here and you can see your code. It's a little sticker right there. So you want to get that 5-digit code, and you're going to need that when you reconnect your battery to reset your radio. So let's get started disconnecting the battery. Alright, now under the, you might be able to do this with your tire still on your car and turn it all the way to the right. But to give you a little bit better access, you want to take off this panel here. And it's got just a couple of these little tabs. So you want to pry these out. So pry out the center of these. And I have another kind of a removal tool that works well on these. Kind of get it under there and pry out the center of that. Okay, so once you get that loosened, you can just pull that out. So there's one, and then we're just going to take that second one out here, and when we get these out, we'll be able to easily access the bottom of the belt. So get that out. Just wiggle that out. There. There's actually one more under there, but you don't really need to take it off if you don't want to. But it'll take, if you want to take the other one off, it's down under here. But here we can see the pulleys, and we can get a little bit better access to everything here. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do after we loosen the belt is we need to remove this alternator to give us access. So there's 3 electrical connections here we're going to take off, pushing in on these and pulling up, and then this clip is going to come off, and then this clip here. So I'm going to need 2 hands to do that, and I'll walk you through that and taking the first one. It's the secret to these is always knowing where the tabs are. So this one you have to push down here and slide it off there. The one back here you have to push here. You might need some pliers to loosen those up if they're tight, and then pull that off here. Now this one on this model car, if you roll this boot up, you'll see this one's actually got a nut, so that's not going to come off unless you get a socket and take that off. That looks like maybe 10mm, so I'll take that off next. That was a 10mm nut. I took that off. Disconnect that. So the last thing you want to do is disconnect the wire. So you can either pry these plastic things out, which are a little hard to get to, but I'm going to just take a 10mm socket and loosen both of these up and just take this bracket off the side. So I'll take that off, and then we need to start on this side and take the rest of the alternator off. So the last thing you want to do for the wires is take this off. Now it slides that way, but you can't see it underneath here. Underneath, and I can show you when I get it off, there's a tab that you're going to lift, you're going to pull up in order to slide it off, because if you don't pull it up, it's going to feel like it's locked on there. So pull it up, slide it off. Now if you look underneath, you can see it's this tab right here. So basically you're pushing up on that tab in order to free that. Alright, so I've got that loose, got all my wires, connections loose. Okay, so this is the part where I'm going to go ahead and just take the belt off. As you can see, I've got a belt removal tool. It's a little bit easier to access. It's 19mm, so I'm going to just to kind of show you. I put it on that right there. That's the tensioner. So if you put it on that, you're going to want to push back towards the, so you can see that I'm pushing back towards the window of the car, and that will give the belt just enough slack. It's going to be pretty hard, but you'll be able to feel the belt get loose. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see this, but the belt is getting loose. So the more I'm going to push up with two hands, and I'll just be able to slide this over the end. All right, so I got that bolt loose. It's a long one. Now the next one is pretty hard to see. It's underneath here. It's another 12mm bolt. See, it's that one right there where my finger's pointing. So we're going to get underneath there. There's a couple other bolts here, but that's the one you want to get. It's underneath there, so try to get that with a 12mm. Okay, so the bolt underneath is really tough to get to. I found the only way I could get it was using an extended 12mm socket. That gave me just enough clearance to go underneath the pulley there and get to it. So it's kind of blind, so you need light and kind of feel that on there. But once you get it on there, it's also a little tough to get off. But I was able to loosen it. Now I got both of these bolts out, so I'm going to pull those out. So once you get both of those bolts out and get everything out of the way, it's just a matter of kind of like wiggling this back and forth. There'll be some resistance here where it's a little bit stuck. Mine's not too bad, so kind of in this one hand here, but you get the idea. It'll come loose. You can see that those are sliding off. So now there we go. So the alternator can come out now and get that out of the way. There. Now you can see this is actually the water pump here, this section here, and it's got the pulley on it. So what we need to do is take the belt tensioner off, which is, it's kind of a horseshoe shape. It goes from here under there, and we're going to take that off, and then we can take the water pump off. 12-inch drives, 12mm on that. I'm using a 1/2-inch drive though, and I was able to loosen that up without too much problem. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out, and then we'll take the rest of it. Okay, now if you're able to, you should take these 3 off that hold the pulley on, or at least loosen them up before you get the belt off. I wasn't able to get them loose because it kept turning the pulley. So after you get the alternator out, you can stick a screwdriver through the hole and kind of wedge it so you can see the end of the screwdriver's coming out there. Now I'm going to take my 10mm wrench and remove those 3 bolts there. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a ratcheting, or take your closed end 10mm, and now that that's in there, wedge, you can get leverage on it, and I've already cracked that one. loose. So I've just got 2 more to do. And you can see you might want to wear gloves and you get, so when that comes loose you don't bang your knuckles. So get all 3 of those loose and then take that pulley off. Okay, now I've got all 3 of those off. And pull that pulley out. You can see there the pulley. And we have better access to our water pump now. You can see that these are the bolts that are going to be taking the water pump off. I got that 12mm bolt out there. Now the last part is a little tricky. Now you can see where I've got my wrench down in there. So I'm going to see if I can focus for you a little bit better. That is actually a what I've got on here. And as you can see, I've got a socket, and you're gonna have to get under there. It's an 8mm Allen wrench, and this is the pivot point for the belt tensioner. So you need to get that out with an 8mm Allen wrench socket head. So once we get that out, that's the last step before we start removing the water pump. Okay, now if you're looking from underneath, this is the 8mm joint. Now I tried a few different ways to get to this. Some people attack it from underneath here. You don't have that much clearance, and you really want to. This is one of those things where you really want to soak in behind here, not so much on the front, but behind in there with penetrating fluid. Don't do this without doing that first, because you can break bits and you can strip the thread, and then you're in a world of hurt. So take my advice, at least on this part, and soak it behind there with a lot of penetrating fluid. Now, I ended up actually just getting it from the top with the 3/8" drive and the 8mm Allen wrench. I tacked it from there, and it did come off. Now, if you've got an older car that it's corroded, it may not be that easy, and you might get into some problems. But this is probably the hardest part of doing this project. Again, if you want to soak the penetrating fluid for that, you want to go in behind this. This is the tensioner pulley here, so you want to get it down in there. So make sure you soak that real good. Take your time. And then I was able to get it from up here. So I'm going to take that off now, and then we'll get to taking out the water pump. Okay, and now when you're taking this out, you kind of have to, you're gonna have to take it out from the top, and you're gonna have to kind of loop it around. So this will be like this, and you're gonna have to swing it around like that. It sits in there like that. And so you're basically going to take it out like that. And at the end, there's the hole, and this is the Allen wrench that goes in there. It was in like this, and so you can see the threads if you're trying to get. So putting penetrating fluid on this part is not going to do anything. You want to get it in the back. That's why you need to squirt in the back part here to get on the threads, because they're not gonna, they're only in the back, so doing in the front's not gonna help. All right, so now we can move on to the water pump. That is the petcock valve, the white valve right here. So make sure you have your drip pan in place underneath. And then you can turn this counterclockwise. You might need a pair of pliers to loosen that. And I'm going to loosen it slow because I don't want it splashing out all over the place. If you take the top off your radiator cap, it'll come out a lot faster, but I'm going to kind of do a slow in it first.